So let's go ahead and get started with some introductions. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. This is the California Department of Education's office hour to assist with all things related to the new teacher assignment monitoring outcomes data. But as is typical for us at the beginning here, we have a presentation, kind of some updated training about how these data are used, how they're relevant. And to that end, we have some great colleagues with us this morning. So I'm Tara Bennett Brown. I work in the Teacher and Leader Policy Office in the division that you can see behind me. And I'm joined this morning by my colleague, Joshua Strong. Josh, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thank you, Tara. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Joshua Strong. I'm the administrator in the local agency system support office here at the California Department of Education. And we're pleased to be with you today.
Thanks, Josh. We also have some additional Department of Education panelists with us to answer questions in the Q&A. As we usually do, please put your questions in the Q&A function of Zoom. In the chat, you all can introduce yourselves if you like, or let us know any notes or something like that, but all questions should go into the Q&A. And this morning we have Kristen Cruz-Allen, manager of the Teacher and Leader Policy Office at the department, Brandy Howdigi, Jill Johnson, Jeff Franey, and I think that rounds us out. All right, folks, we're gonna just jump in with a presentation. And I wanna let you all know that next week's Thursday at 9 a.m. office hour is the last one in this series. And we will do a poll next week to see what you all would like for follow-up training in the future. All right, thanks again. And Josh, I'm gonna pass it over to you.
Great, thank you, Tara. Well, good morning, folks. Thank you for being here with us today. Today, we wanted to talk for a little bit at the beginning of the meeting about how this teaching assignment monitoring outcome data can be used to inform accountability, reporting, and planning for improvement. So we wanted to talk about a few different topics. First of all, the teaching AMO data as it relates to the local indicator for State Priority 1, that local indicator tool. Then to talk about the teaching AMO data as it relates to the local control and accountability plan, and then how that data can also be used in terms of improving reporting processes and also be used to further advance positive outcomes for students. And then we'll open it up for questions and answers. So the first topic is related to the reporting for LCFF State Priority 1 in terms of the local indicator as it relates to this California School Dashboard. So just some background for those of you that might not normally participate in the accountability system or the LCAP. The State Board of Education is required to adopt both state indicators and local indicators to measure school district and individual school site progress in regard to each of the state priorities. And the performance data on state and local priorities is publicly reported through the California School Dashboard. In terms of State Priority 1, there are three components to that. State Priority 1 is sometimes described as your basic priority or your kind of general services, things that are available to all students. So first of all, it's the teachers of the school district are appropriately assigned and fully credentialed in the subject areas and for the students that they are teaching. Second, every student in the LEA has sufficient access to standards-aligned instructional materials. And third, that school facilities are maintained in good repair. These are also the Williams settlement pieces. They're found in the SARC, the School Accountability Report Card, and they're also reported through the dashboard. So currently, to date, LEAs have used locally collected data in order to report three aspects: the number of misassignments of teachers of English learners, the total number of teacher misassignments, and the number of vacant teacher positions to the dashboard using the state board adopted self-reflection tool for the Priority 1 local indicator. However, there have been a couple of changes to the statutory requirements. Assembly Bill 1219 in October of 2019 required that the California Commission on Teacher Credentialing develop the electronic teacher assignment monitoring system, CalSAS, that has been discussed a lot in these office hours. That's to report annual monitoring teacher assignments. In September 2020, Senate Bill 1371 added Education Code Section 52064.5E2, which requires that the standards for local indicators be based on objective criteria whenever the California Department of Education has access to relevant and reliable school level data. So in terms of the reporting process for the 2023 dashboard, moving forward, the LEAs throughout California are not going to collect and report teacher assignment data as part of the Priority 1 local indicator process for this coming and subsequent years. The teaching AMO data is instead going to be reported on the dashboard by the department, beginning with the 2023 dashboard. So at this point, we're in the process of engaging with statewide educational partners in terms of developing those objective criteria that are required by state law. The projected timeline of that development at this point in time is in spring or summer of 2023. We're going to be doing some engagement sessions statewide, looking for feedback in terms of how the objective criteria for the teaching AMO data should be developed, what recommendations there are related to that. The department's then going to bring those recommendations for objective criteria related to the teaching AMO data to the State Board of Education in fall of 2023. And the changes that the board chooses to implement and approves are going to be part of the 2023 dashboard. But regardless of what those objective criteria look like, regardless of how that shows up on the California School Dashboard, moving forward, just to reiterate this point, LEAs are not going to collect and report teacher assignment data as part of the Priority 1 local indicator process moving forward. I want to stress the piece about as part of the Priority 1 local indicator process, because LEAs will still continue to report teacher assignment data and vacancy data to the CalPAD system. Okay, this is not this. Keep reporting to CalPADs. So having covered the local indicator and the process change that's in the works for that, we want to move in and talk about what is this new teaching AMO data. How does that relate to the LCAP? Okay, the LCAP template and instructions require that the LCAP address all of the state priorities that are applicable to each LEA. And so all LEAs, because they all have teachers, are required to report progress related to how teachers in the LEA are appropriately assigned and fully credentialed in the subject areas and for the students that they're teaching. However, unlike some of the state priorities, specifically Priority 4, Student Achievement Priority 5, student engagement and priority 6, school climate, which have some specifically identified measures of progress that are called out within statute. When it comes to priority 1 and this requirement related to the teachers being appropriately assigned and fully credentialed, there is no what we refer to as state required metric that is part of that. The decision of how to measure and report progress related to teachers being appropriately assigned and fully credentialed for the courses and the students that they're teaching remains a local decision when it comes to the LCAP. To date, most of the time within LCAPs, we see metrics that are utilizing audits that are conducted of the teacher assignments and how those are put in place. However, because the teaching AMO data will be used to inform the dashboard in 2023, and because the teaching AMO data will also be reported out as part of the school accountability report card data, LEAs are going to need to consider whether or not there need to be changes to their current measure of progress related to the teaching assignment aspect of priority 1 when they're looking at the annual update process for their 2023-24 LCAP. That's the LCAP that's in the last year of the current 3-year cycle. Will be for not this current school year, but the coming school year. LEAs are going to need to think through, do we need to revise the metric? Do we need to add a measure of progress? If you're considering that, if you're thinking through that, we encourage you to engage your educational partners in that discussion, engage them in a discussion around the data. Just as a reminder, those educational partners include teachers, school staff, administrators at the site and the district level, local bargaining units, parents, and students, as well as other members of the community. Also, as a reminder for those of you that do work with the LCAP, any additions, revisions, deletions that are made to the current measures of progress within the LCAP must be documented as part of that goal analysis section in the 2023-24 LCAP. So, Rebecca, as in terms of your question, correct. LEAs at this point in time are not required to revise their LCAP in 23-24 to include the teaching AMO data as a measure of progress for one of the goals. Depending on the way that it shows up within the dashboard, that might need to be captured as part of the identified needs section in the plan summary. It could show up in a different way as part of the description of needs within the increased or improved services section or something like that. But you wouldn't necessarily, LEAs at this point in time are not necessarily required to revise their current measure of progress related to teacher assignments and include the teaching AMO data. That being said, one of the things that we wanted to touch on here are some of the ways that the teaching AMO data can be used in order to help improve the processes and drive improved outcomes. So the first suggestion that we have is that LEAs analyze the teaching AMO data in order to determine if there are any issues with the data collection and reporting process, with the way that those teaching assignments are being identified and coded within CalPads and reported at the state level. Obviously, the cleaner the data is that we have, the more it can provide us with information to inform our processes and advise our decision making. So some questions to potentially ask would be, why does the LEA, or even looking at particular school levels, why does the school have out of field teacher assignments? What's our current coding process for teacher assignments? Did LEAs in schools report teacher assignment data accurately? Is there a need to better track those things? And then using that as a starting point in order to analyze the way in which teachers are assigned, to determine if some adjustments can be made to those assignments, and improve assignment outcomes for the LEA as a whole. Also identifying potential things that can be done to address those incomplete AMOs. So let's look at an example of the teaching AMO data. And this is, we've got some data related to self-contained classes. We've also got some subject areas. Just as a reminder, you know, when, as all of you are probably aware, the individual subject areas are looking more at social, secondary sites rather than looking at elementary sites. But in this particular instance, when we're looking at the data itself, you know, and we're looking at, say, our mathematics subject area, we've got a number of out of field, a number of intern, ineffective, and incomplete. Are those data accurate? So that would be the first kind of recommendation, to start looking at the data in terms of accuracy and whether or not there need to be any improvements in our processes. Next, we'd like to recommend that folks look at the teaching AMO data as part of the LEA's needs assessment, at the LEA level, at a school level, subject area levels, and look to see, are there potential, is there potential overlap between the data that we have related to our teaching assignments and whether or not we're able to make the progress we want to make towards achieving our goals within the LCAP, or addressing our needs that have been identified within our school plans. Are teaching assignments actually part of what needs to be addressed in order to improve outcomes for students within our plans? So, for example, if we're looking at the data, this is the same data. Are there particular things that we're looking, do we have a goal related to improving our students' academic outcomes in terms of ELA and math? Most LEAs have a goal that's similar to that. If we're looking at our teaching AMO data, looking at those assignments, obviously we're going to have to do a little bit more digging within our local data when it comes to self-contained classes at the elementary level to see whether or not there's some additional training or there's things that can be done in order to identify particular strategies related to ELA and math instruction. When it comes to our secondary, the data is a little bit more user-friendly when we're looking at the potential connection between teacher assignments and outcomes. Because if we're trying to improve our ELA and our math, or we're looking at improving our EL performance in ELA and math, it really helps to be able to see, whether or not we have the majority of our teachers as clear. The majority of our teachers have clear assignments rather than out of field, ineffective, or incomplete. So the utilizing this data as part of that needs assessment is going to give us some additional insight into whether or not there are some additional actions, strategies, etc., that need to be incorporated or would be valuable to be incorporated into the LCAP or into a school plan in order to address, in order to help the LEA make progress towards those goals. And then thirdly, using the teaching AMO data to inform planning. We'd like to propose that folks investigate what can be done in terms of the planning for the coming year to move out of field and ineffective assignments to clear assignments. Are there particular strategies that can be used to help teachers obtain supplemental authorizations, credentials, certifications that might be valuable in allowing those assignment outcomes, not just those assignment outcomes to move to clear, but in turn provide better instruction and have a better understanding of the different strategies that can be used in instructing students. Can the master schedule be adjusted? And can additional training opportunities be made available? These are all examples of things that could potentially impact planning at either the school level with your school plans or at the LEA level through the LCAP. And depending on the students that are primarily being served, could potentially be part of an action or could be an action that could be used towards increasing or improving services, meeting the requirement to increase or improve services for low-income English learner and foster youth students at an LEA. So again, if we're looking at this example of the data, and we've got, we see in particular our math and our science, we've got out of field, we've got intern, we've got ineffective, incomplete assignments. Are there specific things that can be incorporated in the plan in order to support teachers and build out the capacity of teachers and equip them so that the assignments can be moved from those fields into the clear? And then the obviously the hope there is that by doing that, it's going to improve instruction, which is going to improve outcomes for students. So again, when we're looking at this, it's not simply looking at it when we're looking at the data in relation to our school and our LEA level planning. It's not just looking at the data in terms of how can we clean up our teaching AMO data. It's how is it that we can utilize this data in order to improve student outcomes.